Hi everyone. Welcome back to another wee voiceover recording lesson. Hope you're all coping well with your home learning, and hope you're sitting at home in your comfy clothes like I am. Gonna crack on with the next lesson, which is identifying river landforms and land uses. Now, I mentioned this briefly in the last recording for lesson 4. Again, this ties into the previous lesson and the one before it as well. So you need to make sure that you do like lesson 3 and lesson 4, and then you should be able to do lesson 5. And I particularly wanted to do this wee video thing for lesson 5 because maybe you've had a look at this lesson already, but it's something that you would have struggled with if I were to just upload the PowerPoint and say, right, learn it or read through it yourself. This particular stuff isn't really something that you'll learn like the way we've learned the river features and the river processes. This is like a skill, and you'll hear me throughout the course of GCSE geography. You'll hear me saying, like we need to perfect our geographical skills, because you do use these particular skills throughout the whole course. And within the rivers part of your exam in particular, this is normally where you are required to show that you can do these skills and you can identify certain things, and we'll go through it in a wee second. So me just uploading this onto Google Classroom and expecting you to just read through it would not have worked. So I really do hope that doing it this way will make it a little bit easier for you. So grab your book. This lesson starts on page 34. Looks like that. So there's a few different skills that we're going to be looking at in this lesson. If you read the learning intention there at the top, hold on, I'll make this bigger as well. So we need to be able to interpret aerial photographs and OS maps to identify river landforms and uses. So you will essentially be given a photograph or a map in your exam and be asked to do something with it and identify different things to do with rivers within that photo or map. Now, the first element of this is aerial photos, and you can see that on this slide. You might be given a photo in the exam, and you might be told to identify what the feature is. So it could be like a waterfall, or it could be a meander, and you just then need to show that you know that information, but from using a photograph. Now, that's the easier one. I'm not going to read all of this to you because you can do that in your own time. It's really the OS map element of this that I want to spend a bit more time going through with you. So I'm going to whiz through, I'm going to skip by that one, and I'll show you these next 3 slides and what they will look like in the exam, what you will be required to do with them. So like I say, using OS maps is the second element, the second thing that you need to be able to do. So even before I look at that, on page 34 in your booklet, that first task there is requiring you to use that photo that you see on your page, which is of a meander, and the skill that you have to do is you have to sketch that and draw it out really roughly in the space below. But as I say, that's the easier one. It's these OS tasks that are a bit more difficult, and I'm going to spend a bit more time with you. Just at the top of that page actually is a good wee introduction to what these skills actually look like. So I've said for this part of the exam, you need to have a basic geographical skill. You need to have basic geographical skills such as sketching, labeling features, identifying features on OS maps, and using 4 and 6 figure grid references. And hopefully you will remember them from first year. And if not, that's what I'm going to try and cover in this wee lesson. So as I say, that first task on page 34 is the sketching skill, which is essentially the easiest one. So it says there in the space below, complete a full sketch of this aerial photo of the Amazon River, add labels for erosion and deposition, then describe why these features are occurring. So that's just an example of one of the wee tasks that you might get in the exam, and that just allows you to demonstrate that you know what a meander is, and then you know how it works. Like you have your deposition on the inside and you have your erosion on the outside, and then you can go into more detail. after that. So I am going to focus mostly on page 35 throughout this lesson. And you'll see as well that I have told you at the top of page 35, it says use the OS map on page 18 of the GCSE textbook to answer the following questions. Now, you obviously don't have the GCSE textbook with you, it's in school. So what I've done is I have included it within this PowerPoint. That is the map that you need to do these questions. So I'm going to run through those questions one at a time and try and spend a wee bit of, like, break it up, spend a good bit of time reminding you how to do these things, because as I say, these skills are done in first year, so it's been a while basically since you'll have done your grid references and you'll have looked at contour lines and things like that. So this is essentially going to be a crash course, and there's a wee activity I'm going to do at the end, like a quiz, and I'll go through it with you as well. And at the end of it, if you're still a bit rusty with the likes of your six-figure grid references, or you're still unsure about contour lines, we will revisit this in school. So yeah, before I get on to the questions for this map, these couple of slides are basically saying what I've just told you, that you could be given a map in the exam and you'll be asked to do certain things with it. So I'm not going to read through them. You can read through those couple of slides yourselves. What normally happens in the exam is that you have an actual insert. Whenever you open up your exam, there's a map in it, and you use that map to answer a particular set of questions, probably within the rivers part of the exam, and it'll say, like, use your map insert to answer the following questions. And these ones on page 35 are exactly the types of questions that you will be asked in the exam. So let's crack on with this then. Now, before I actually start into the questions, I want you to look at this map first of all, and then the information around it. So I've said, first of all, page 35 activities. This is the map which you need to complete the activities on page 35. This next paragraph is a piece of information which will be somewhere around your map. Now, in the textbook, it's right below the map. I've just copied and pasted it onto this slide. That information is really important. It's basically telling you the scale. So that's another thing we did in first year a long time ago. So crash course. This map shows the Glendon River in County Antrim. The scale is 1 to 50,000. Okay. This means that for every 1 centimetre on this map, it represents 50,000 centimetres in real life. So if you measured something on the map and it was 10 centimetres, that would equal 500,000 centimetres in real life, aka 5 kilometres. Now, that's probably the most difficult skill. I will go into more detail in a second whenever we do the question on scale. I think it is question 2. But yeah, don't get too scared. The other wee thing I want you to draw your attention to is, move me out of the way, is the bit at the bottom. So it says, note that the number 1 shows the end of the upper course of the river, and number 2 shows the end of the middle course. So if you look on the map, you'll see number 1 and number 2. That's really important for the question that we're going to do in the booklet, because you have to measure the distance between those 2 points. Right. I hope you have this in front of you. If you don't, you should have access to an electronic version of these questions in the booklet that I've uploaded in the last lesson. So go and dig that out if you don't have this in front of you. So number 1 says, what evidence can you find on the OS map to support the view that tourists visit this area? State your evidence from the map and draw the relevant OS map symbols and give the 6-figure grid references. So there's a few different things you have to do for question 1. First overall question is, how do you know that this area is a tourist area? The other thing is you have to use map symbols. That was one of the nicer ones that we did in first year, where you have like the pink triangle representing your youth hostel, and you have like church with spire, church without spire. Hopefully you remember those. So if you look carefully on this map, you can see loads of little symbols in and around Cushendall and Cushendun. Now, if you don't know your symbols, the good thing is in the exam with the map, they give you the key for the symbols as well. So say, for example, you had no idea what that P, hopefully you can see my mouse, you had no idea what that P meant, you would look at the key and it would tell you, oh, P means parking. These little ones hopefully are pretty straightforward because it looks like what it represents. These are representing little caravan parks. You can see a few in and around Cushendall. There's one there, there's one there, there's one there in Glenarth, one there in Glenarth as well, and then all the way up in Cushendall there's one. Yeah, so that would be your main evidence as to how you know this area is for tourists. Another one which you might be able to see is that in Cushendall you have this little symbol. Now I know this is really hard to see, but that's a little eye symbol, and on an OS map that represents tourist information. And I mean that one's probably the most obvious, like tourist information is for tourists. And then I suppose you could use parking as well as evidence as it being for tourists. So there's 3 different symbols that you can state, that you can identify within this area, within these 3 towns, I suppose. So that's the first thing you would write down. You would say that there is evidence that there are caravan parks, there's a tourist information in Cushendall specifically, and there's also a few parking areas as well. You could go one step ahead and you could count them, and you could say specifically which village they're in or which town. The other part of question 1 is it would like you to give the relevant the relevant 6-figure grid reference for those symbols that you're talking about. So if it were me, I would say you can see in Cushendall that there is a tourist information. This can be found in grid square 2327. Could you have done that? Now, the only thing is that's a 4-figure grid reference. The question asks for a 6-figure grid reference. So I'm going to show you this slightly different on this version. Right, so where's the tourist information now? There's the tourist information that I was just mentioning. I'm going to highlight it for you. So it's within that square. And I just told you the 4-figure grid reference for it. So the 4-figure grid reference was 2327. Can you see how I did that? So 23 has to come first because it's along the bottom. And if you remember back to first year, you should remember that we say you have to walk along the corridor before you go up the stairs. In other words, that means you have to be able to give these numbers first, along the bottom numbers. So 23 is going to be your first 2 numbers, and then it would be 27 from that line. The other wee thing I always point out when doing grid references is you want to give the bottom left hand corner of the square that you are talking about. So I have highlighted that square and I'm pointing you to the bottom left hand corner of it now. And the reason I'm doing that is because that corner points to or touches those lines that you need to include the numbers of. So the 2-3 line is along there, touches the bottom left hand corner, and the 2-7 line is along there, it touches the bottom left hand corner. Now that's a 4-figure grid reference. You need to give more detail to show that you're somewhere within this square. Now the 6-figure grid reference gives a more exact point of where it is. So your tourist information is, oops, sorry, I'm all over the place, is there. So after you give your 2-3, you then need to say 2-3 something within that square. Now I would say, well, what I always do is I say, is it halfway? So halfway would be 5, wouldn't it? So this isn't just halfway, it would maybe be 4, which would be about there. So that means that the first 3 figures of the 6-figure grid reference would be 2, 3, 4. And then the other one, this way, is, again, it's just beyond halfway between 2, 7 and 2, 8. So what do you reckon? It's not going to be 5 because 5 would be like there. So it's about there, which maybe again would be 6. So what would that be? 2, 3, 4, 2, 7, 6. Yeah? Now, I know that is really difficult for me to demonstrate on my computer. A good way to do it is to obviously have the map in front of you, but also to get a ruler out and lay the ruler along the lines that you're following. That was a really terrible example of me trying to teach you how to do 6 river grid references. Like I say, it's a crash course because you've done this before. And if you still aren't 100% with it, don't worry, we will come back to this. So that's number 1 done. Number 2 is the difficult one that I was talking about. Number 2 says, calculate the distance the river covers in its middle course. Give your answer in kilometres. And then it says, tip, be sure to check the scale on this map. How many centimetres on the map represent a kilometre on the ground? So that is what I was talking to you about this part. So somewhere around your map will have a scale and it will tell you how many centimetres on the map represent however many centimetres in real life. The other thing was this. These numbers tell you that middle course area on this map. So it says calculate the distance that the river covers in the middle course. This tells you that the numbers 1 shows the end of the upper course and number 2 shows the end of the middle course. So you have to measure the distance in between 1 and 2. Now, I don't have a ruler at home with me, but let's do it like this. If we say we've got a ruler, I don't have a ruler, say I got my ruler and I measured that and it was 10 centimetres. That means that we have to then times the numbers on the right hand side also by 10. It's like a ratio in maths where whatever you do to the left hand side number, you have to do exactly the same on the right hand side number. So 10 is 10 times 1. So you have to do 10 times 50,000. And that's how I've ended up with 500,000. Now 10 is a really nice number to get because all you need to do is add an extra 0. So that's why I've used 10 in this example. If it were, say, 5 centimetres, so you got your ruler, measured between 1 and 2, and it was 5 centimetres. You're timesing 1 by 5. So what do you need to times the 50,000 by? 5 as well. So hopefully that makes sense. The other thing as well to notice is that the question asks for your answer in kilometres, doesn't it? So that's why here, what I've done is I've said, right, I've measured 10 centimetres on the map, but that would equal to 50,000 centimetres in real life. And then I've converted it to 5 kilometres because 5 kilometres is 500,000 centimetres, but you wouldn't write that, you would write 5k. And that's it. That's how you do the measurements between the two. So in your actual exam, you'll need to bring a ruler, and then you just need to do those steps that we just did. And like I say, don't worry, if you don't get that right now, we will do more of these little map tasks. I mean, if you look on page 37, there's a whole other page of these map skills questions, but with a different map. Now, that's the other thing actually I want to mention to you. You will not be able to do that one because it's in school. So don't worry about what's on page 37. We're just doing the page 35 questions because I can at least give you a picture of this map that's in the textbook, you know. Right, so that's number 2. Number 3 says, in the upper course of the Glendon River, there's a waterfall. Give the 4-figure grid reference for that river. So the first thing you want to do here is study the map and see if you can find this river. It says the Glendon River. Now, if you look carefully on this map, there's quite a few rivers, and the rivers are represented by those little blue thin lines. The Glendon is up here, and in order to find that, you're just going to have to rate the names around it. It's like looking at a town on a map. You just need to look for the name of it. Same for the names of the rivers. So we know that the upper course of a river is the opposite from the sea. So that basically means that you're not going to be looking for your waterfall up here because that's the lower course of the river. So what I'm going to do is go the whole way along, follow this line towards probably the source, which looks to be about there. There's another river joining the Glendon, so that's a nice wee confluence from the tributary. But the upper course of the Glendon starts around here. And I don't know if you can see the waterfall. It's very hard to see, but I'm going to point to what I think is the waterfall. I think that says waterfall. Can't see anywhere else that it would be, but that says Glendon River. I'm pretty sure that says waterfall. And it makes sense because it's in the upper course. So what do we have to do? Give its 4-figure grid reference. So another wee grid reference question. The first thing that you do is you look at which square it's in. So this waterfall is mostly within this square. Hopefully you agree. So again, look at the bottom left-hand corner of that said square. Follow the lines and then tell me the line along the bottom first, which number it is, and then the one towards the left. So this square, got it? Right, so bottom left-hand corner of the square, we want the bottom numbers first, so it's going to be 16, or 16, sorry. And then this is the line that's touching the bottom left-hand corner, 2, 3. So your 4-figure grid reference for the waterfall in the upper course of Glendon River is 16, 2, 3. Hopefully. Given that you should be able to actually see the river, or sorry, the waterfall or the feature in the map that you have in your life. Right, number 4. How would you describe the valley sides of the Glendon in grid square 1830? And what evidence is there to support this? So, couple of things you have to do here. You have to know how to do the grid reference to find where it is that it wants you to look at. So the grid square is 1830. So I find 18. I'm going to go up until I can see 30. So 30 is there, so that means I'm in this square, and that makes sense because there's the label for the Glendon. Now, the question says, how would you describe the valley sides? This requires you to know how to use contour lines to know what the relief looks like for a particular piece of land. Now, contour lines are these little squiggly lines that you find on a map, and on this map they're orange. The closer that contour lines are to each other, the steeper the land. So in other words, the land is very steep in that square because you can barely even see the lines because they're so close together. Like, look at that part there, like it's almost completely orange because those lines are so close together. Whereas in another part of the land, like say up here, that line is quite far away from that line. That means that it's probably quite flat. So how can we describe that piece of land? What adjective would you use? Would you say flat? No, you would not. You would say that it's quite steep. And then your evidence is, well, the contour lines are very, very close together. And that's it. You could also describe it as a cliffside, a steep valley side. But yeah, the main buzzword I want you to generate from that is that it's steep or very steep. Okay, question 5. Why would much of the land in this area be of limited use just to farmers? How could farmers make best use of this land? Now, this is requiring you to look at the whole picture, the whole map, and what colour makes up the majority of that map? It's orange. Orange on this map is basically like agricultural rural land. It's steep, it's hilly, it's fields. The lighter coloured lands, like for example down here in Glenarth, is residential, more urbanised areas where people live. So like you can see that that's a town because of all the grey in it. Also as well, your darker colours on a map represent height. So the highest point of this map looks to be there because that's like the darkest orange, I think. Hopefully, yeah. So this land is going to be limited to farmers because of its shape. It's too hilly. It's too densely packed with forest. Like for example, there's a forest over here. There's rivers and streams. The land would not be of good use to build houses on, basically. So it would be good for farmers because they can use it for food. They can use it for grazing. Couldn't think of the word there. And that's really it. That's just to show that you can see what that map is showing overall. It's not a map of a city. It's a map of a rural area. Okay, right. Number 6. How would you describe Slieve and Nora Forest? Right. I don't know where Slieve and Nora Forest is on this map, so how are we going to find it? Hopefully you can see that a forest on this map is shown by little tree symbols. Can you see where the forests are? If you look on the left hand side, all of this area is represented as a forest, because if you look really carefully, these are all little tree symbols. And then there we go, Slieve and Nora, probably not pronouncing that right. Forest is right there. So how would we describe it? You could say that it is in the west of the map. You could say, ooh, what about how flat it is or steep the land is? You could say that it's in quite a flat area. I can't really make out those contour lines, but they look to be quite far apart. You know, it doesn't look like really close contour lines like that. So you could say that it is in a relatively flat part of the map. You could say that it's close to some rivers. You could say that what else? You could mention some of the features in and around it, like the name of the hill. So it's basically just using the information on the map to say what you can see. Using the key as well, use the information in the key. Right, next one, number 7. How would you describe the coastline south of Cushendon, sorry. So there's a few different things here that they are testing you on. So obviously you need to know which way south is on a map, which is down the way. And then you need to find where Cushendon is. So Cushendon is in the top right hand corner of this map, which is there. So you would be describing the coastline probably there, directly south of it. And again, it's just using what you can see there. Like, is it flat? No, it's not. It's quite steep. So again, you could say that it's, you could describe it as a cliff because of the contour lines. You could also say that it's not accessible because there's not really any roads there. The closest road is around that way. So you could say that it's perhaps, oh look, actually you can see a path over this hill. So you could say it's quite a hilly area, and you could name that hill. It's Cross Slieve. I would also say that I would just say that it's not built up. It's just a more rural area, and there's a walkway close by. The main thing there that you need to recognise is that it's steep, again, using your contour line skill. Right, number 8 and 9 then over the page is the last 2 things that you need to do for this map. So to be honest with you, I'm not really well worried about these last few things because chances of you being asked to create your own map are very, very slim. Basically what number 8 is asking you to do is to sketch that map into that space on page 36. So in the space below, use that OS map to draw your own annotated sketch of the Glendon River. So the Glendon River, again, is along here. And then there's a whole load of things that it wants you to include in that sketch. So like show the course of the river, show the valleys, any of its major tributaries, split it into the upper, middle and lower courses, its floodplain, etc, etc. So I mean, essentially it's just going to be copying that onto that space, and the point of doing that is to get you to recognise the features that you can see on a map, and that you have to then translate the information from a map into a key, because the key will tell you that the little lines are contour lines. that the blue lines are rivers, that the red lines are main roads, and etc., all the symbols as well. So like I say, I'm not too worried about that activity. It's the previous page that I would like you to have a go at doing. And then on page 36, that's the other map skill page that we can't do because those maps are in school. We'll do them later on. And that is all you really need to do for lesson 5. The last thing I want you to have a go at is this. So this is on the last slide. It says this is a link to a quiz on BBC Bitesize. See if you can work out, or see if you can, that's supposed to say, see if you can remember how to do these skills questions. So I'll click on this, show you what it looks like. There you go. So there's some similar activities that we were just doing, only these are different. So I want you to have a go at that, and what you can do is obviously use your notes that we just did to help you with that. Rewatch any part of this video. If it's the one to do with six-figure grid references, watch that part again. If it's the one to do with reading contour lines, watch it again. So have a go at those. There's only 10 questions. Let me know how you got on with those questions, and then, like I say, don't be worrying. Let me bring this back up. Don't be worrying too much about it, because we will do this again in school, and this is a major ask of me to get you to do this at home without me helping you. That's why I definitely wanted to do this video for this particular lesson. That's it, folks. Again, you know where I am in terms of messaging me. So if you have any issues with any of your online work, just throw me a message and I will get back to you pretty quickly. And yeah, I'll do another one of these for the next lesson, because I think it's helped quite a bit. A lot of you are getting your work in, and it's exactly the way it's supposed to be, which is really good. But as I say in the last video, let me know if you have any feedback to make these things better for you. I'll hear you out. Yeah, right. I'll see you in the next one then.